We have homecoming today, actually, so it's
Oh,
probably better that it's early.
Yeah.
I mean, Saturday's going well. Just I think we're actually Michigan. I go to college in Michigan. I think they have a game right now, but it's away. So yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
It's a great college up there.
yes.
So
All right, so basically, I'm just gonna do a little introduction. I'm just gonna ask a few questions, and then go into the conclusion. It won't be too long, but yeah.
All right, sounds good.
So, Grant, are you ready?
yes. Yep.
Good.
Yep. Let's do
All right.
it.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Bombcast. I'm your host, Shane Seligman, and alongside my partner, Grant Morgan. And today we would like to give a warm welcome to our guest, Blake Mischley. Happy Saturday, Blake. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. It's a good weather. It's a little cooler here in Michigan, getting close to winter time, but beyond that, it's all good.
Yeah, it's still hot here in California. It was like 85 yesterday.
Jealous.
So our first question we have for you, can you can you please introduce yourself and share a bit about your background and journey as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, for sure. So pretty much context on me. I'm Blake Mischley. I'm a junior here at University of Michigan. Really kind of always been interested in entrepreneurship. Kind of it first kind of started in 8th grade. I made a clothing company about my now CTO. I didn't know him really at the time. He was just a cool guy who could do backflips. So sold a couple hats and shirts off of his likeness and imaging. So kind of started there. Didn't really recognize a whole lot. Flash forward to senior year, COVID. That's kind of when it was all happening. So me and my buddies were like, "Hey, let's just try something." It was really kind of stupid. Just easiest way to explain it was modeling of mugs over kind of like meme and pop culture. It didn't really do anything, but that just gave me the kind of a bit of a bug when it comes to entrepreneurship. Then I get to campus, met my main co-founder, Jonah List, first day in school, and just started chopping up ideas. I think we went through 7 different ideas before we finally arrived at a caffeinated beverage, actually. And funnily enough, we wanted to figure out how could we advertise this caffeinated beverage, and we came across all these social media communities for like incoming students to use. So like UMich or your graduation year. So we started running a few of those, and then we realized that was the business. If we can figure out how to optimize and scale that, so we dropped the formulated beverage and have been running with Meet Your Class since.
That's great. That's really what it takes. You got to find the need and then you kind of have to supply. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a trial and error.
I feel like it
And
always
so,
starts with that clothing company too.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
of course. I feel like definitely as you're younger, that's when your entrepreneur like mind starts and you just want to start like all these different things and it's just kind of a trial and error about like, well, let's do this clothing company, let's do this. But it
Mhm.
kind of gets you ready and like kind of like narrows your mindset down and kind of like lets you know what you want to do later a little bit. So,
Yeah.
what was the purpose of coming up with Meet Your Class?
Yeah. So pretty much like I had mentioned a little bit how we got started. So
Yeah.
when I came to college, so I found this Instagram page. It was UMich 2025, where people would just kind of post themselves. And I found my roommate through that. So really, I knew those existed. I have a background in social media, have been usually running those communities, did some editing for some creators, things like that. So I had a pretty good idea how social media worked. And so we were trying to think of, hey, we're eventually going to have something to promote. Let's just get the advertising channels first. So we got a couple of those communities we started running, but we did it manually, and people don't really recognize the back end of how these work. So they used to be Facebook groups, but Instagram doesn't have any group features. So I was manually posting like 25 people a day per account. So that was just very time consuming, and doing that pretty much for a whole year straight since U of M and I did one for University of South Florida, and it was just a painful process. But what we kind of recognized through that was it's really valuable. A lot, I think, some of these pages would have during the peak, like during a like peak month of admission, so like April, we saw had like several hundred thousands profile visits from like unique people. So there's a lot of eyeballs. So we thought, hey, how can we just scale this? Because I can't do this manually, but there's a lot of value. A lot of students are relying on this since universities aren't really doing a whole lot for this transition period. So we started Meet Your Class, really with just the idea that students don't want to download another shitty social media, and that they don't want to download another app. That's why all these communities exist. There's so many apps, when it comes to like finding roommates, finding friends, consumer apps, things like that, but they don't have anyone. Like if you look up college roommate finder on Google, the top result, like for University of Michigan, has like 100 people in it for like the latest class. Like that's not enough people if you're trying to actually find, have a community. So we started with Meet Your Class, and just grew from there. We grew to like 180,000 plus account creations on our website in the first year, just by going to where students already are and not building, like we built the platform, but we just really focused on distribution. Like how can you actually centralize a whole class?
That's really great. It's really good when you can find something and be unique from the rest, like how you did. No one else was really doing that. And so going through an experience like that, there's definitely going to be challenges starting up a company like that. And so what is the biggest piece of advice or lesson that you can give to young entrepreneurs watching this show? And can you further share your experience as a student entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think like the biggest piece of advice really comes down to like two main points. First of all, like you need to focus on how you're going to get students or customers or users. I think like a big thing that gets stressed on to a lot of later, like after a lot of people have gone through entrepreneurship, a lot of them focus on distribution, focus on how you're going to get the student consumer. So I really think it's a mix of that and also a mix of just starting, because like if I look back on like past year and a half, I didn't know how to code I knew how to code. I didn't know how to web develop a year and a half ago. And if I really like take a look at like how much I've grown, how much I've accomplished in just a year and a half, it's kind of crazy. So you just have to start and you have to push a lot of things to market. I think especially like a lot of courses, a lot of things online, or even in college, when a lot of entrepreneurship classes, they make you spend so much time just trying to validate your idea, so much time trying to build out a business plan, which is great. But in the end of the day, if you're not just putting something out in the market and seeing how users are interacting with it and seeing if there's a demand that way, you're wasting a whole lot of time on just making paper things instead of just shipping product.
Yeah, definitely just like starting. It's just the hardest thing because like it makes people step out of their comfort zone, and just like that constant failure at the beginning just really just makes them not want to do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But last question we have for you. So given the Meet Your Class's accomplishments and similar future goals with Bawmcast surrounding generational success, where do you see Gen Z's impact on industries, specifically higher education?
Yeah, it really comes down to when I'm looking at problems, I really think that there's a lot of industries that are just very outdated when it comes to whether like how they're interacting with Gen Z or even newer generations. A lot of the systems in place, they're just expecting that it's going to work for like, hey, it worked for Gen X, it worked for millennials, it'll work for the next generation, which I don't believe it's true when it comes, especially when you look at a lot of the differences, like Gen Z, a lot of mental health, nearly double previous generations, social isolation. There's just a much more reliant on social media. There's just a big difference. And there's a whole, whether it's higher ed specifically or other industries, there's going to need to be change when it comes to a lot of these things. So that's where I'm really bullish, in the sense that if the Gen Z comes into a problem, I think there's always going to be a need for change. So like that's what we're hopefully working on Meet Your Class, specifically in the higher ed space, just because, as I mentioned, universities aren't really built for success when it comes to the student. There's a lot of inefficiencies, very bureaucratic, and that's just not really working for today's students. So hopefully through Meet Your Class, we can create some positive change and maybe modernize a few things here and there.
Perfect. With many young entrepreneurs watching this show, do you have any advice on how to time management or split up how to run a business like you do and deal with school at the same time?
Yeah, no, it's definitely hard. Just
Yeah.
because I took a gap semester this last semester, but I am back in school, and it's definitely kind of a struggle to juggle both things. And when it comes to also I think when it comes to like portraying yourself as a younger entrepreneur, I think a lot of times there's some like bias, whether you're talking to I mean, a lot of times you're in rooms with people 2 to 3 times as old as you, so you're
Yeah.
gonna have a lot of eyes on you, and that just means you can't give them any reason to doubt you. So it's definitely a grind. And when it comes to time management, I personally use just Notion. I use some other project management tools just to make sure I'm maximizing my time. But realistically, specifically since we are younger, it's just you have to be perfect, which just adds to the stress. But yeah, it's just kind of maximizing your time, understanding what options you have. I think I don't remember who said it. Someone said like entrepreneurs have to be paranoid optimists and are very good at seeing all the options in front of them, because they need to be paranoid enough to know like things that are out there, and then optimist enough because, well, if you're not an optimist, you're not going to believe in yourself enough to keep pushing. So it's just a bunch of different traits that you need to have, and just kind of make things work, whether that's kind of losing sleep or other things. It's a grind.
Of course. No, it definitely is a grind. Shane and I both feel that it's our senior year and we're trying to balance this and just get this started. So we definitely understand you. And it's really inspiring because it's nice talking to a young entrepreneur like yourself, college student. So we should really appreciate you coming on to the show and, like showing us like how you run a business like that. It's really inspiring.
For sure. Thank you. It was a great time talking with you both.
Of course. And that
Yeah,
about
thank you
wraps
so
up
much.
this episode of Bombcast. Thank you, Blake, for joining in and sharing your entrepreneurial journey with us and our listeners. We're so excited to see what the future has in store for you. We really are. So thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your Saturday. Don't be too jealous of the weather down here.
I'll try not to. I'll try not to. But yeah. You too, man. You too.
Of course. We'll keep in touch.
For sure.
All right.
All right. I'll catch you guys later. Thank you guys for
All
having
right.
me.
Bye now. Of course,
Later.
man.
Thank you.